Hello everyone, Neil Tappin here from Golf Monthly, and welcome to the fourth video in our series looking at some of the key equipment trends out on the European Tour. Now we've already looked at wedge trends, we've looked at some of the oldest golf clubs you can find, and we've looked at the composition at the top end of the bag of the best players in the world. But in this video we wanted to focus on one brand, and that brand was Nike. Now obviously Nike stopped making golf equipment in August 2016. But given how reluctant the best players in the world sometimes are to change their equipment, we knew that there was still some lingering Nike clubs out on tour and wanted to drill down and find out exactly what they were. Before we do that, guys, please do hit the pause button and let us know what your relationship with Nike golf clubs was. Do you still have any in your bag now? Have you had some favourites over the years? If so, what were they? We'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. As ever, the data that we've got for this comes from Sports Marketing Surveys Inc. They're the people that gather the information before the players tee off on the Thursday morning, so it's very accurate. And the week that we've chosen to have a look at is the French Open on the European Tour in June 2018. Now, before we get into that data, I do just want to pull out a few of the Nike equipment highlights over the years, because by the time they came out of the equipment market, there had been some real hits that Nike had produced over the years. They started making golf equipment in 1998, and the first thing they produced was a golf ball called the Precision Tour Control. By the year 2000, they were able to convince Tiger Woods to use their golf ball, and that appears to have been a sort of a critical moment in the history of Nike, because after that time, you start to see more players using Nike golf clubs as well. And the first win they had out on tour was a major championship. It was the Open in 2001, and the winner was David Duval. And he was using a set of the Nike blades, and blades became a sort of category of golf clubs that Nike were very strong in, partly because they used the expertise of Tiger Woods to help them design those golf clubs. And by the time Nike came out of the golf equipment market in 2016, you do see a hell of a lot of Nike blades being used out on tour. But it wasn't only about those really simple traditional irons. Nike also showed a really impressive level of innovation in metalwoods too. Think back to the square drivers. So Nike produced a square driver. It was called the Sasquatch Sumo. It was designed to be the most forgiving metalwood that Nike could produce. It wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Ultimately, it didn't stand the test of time. But what it does reveal is a real level of innovation and a desire to help people play better. Something that you see right through to 2016. Don't forget, Nike also produced their fairway woods with a sort of cavity back in them. It's something we haven't seen since. I've got a Covert 2.0 fairway wood from Nike here, and you can see this sort of hollowed out bit in the back of the head here, designed again to offer the most biggest moment of inertia, most forgiveness that Nike could produce. It was something they produced in the original Covert, the Covert 2.0, which was red, the version that I've got here, and the blue version, which was the last metal woods that Nike produced, which are the ones that you'll still see used out on tour if you've got a BDI. Now, that's enough of the history lesson. Let's take a look at what's being used in 2018. So what you're looking at here is a grid that reveals the different models that were being used in 2016 versus 2018. Now, I need to say here that this isn't the total number of clubs, because a set of irons is counted as just one model. So that's why the numbers are relatively low, but they'd be low across the board. There were 97 different models in play in 2016 versus just 6 in 2018. So it shows that the equipment, Nike equipment, has really fallen off a cliff. I'll be honest and say I expected to see a few more Nike clubs being used out there on the European Tour, lingering around, but I guess there are a few really good reasons for that. The first is there's no Nike tour truck. So if you crack the head of your 3-wood while you're practicing on a Tuesday, there's nothing that the brands can do to get you that exact 3-wood into play again. You'd have to go with a totally different model, which could upset your game. I think it's something that a lot of players have thought about. The other thing is that when Nike came out of equipment, effectively all of the players they sponsored became free agents. They became free to choose whatever equipment they wanted to play, and there was an awful lot of experimentation that went on, looking at some of the best players in the world. Brooks Koepka, free agent. Tommy Fleetwood, also a free agent. And then also the final point I'll make here is don't forget about the improvements in technology that have been made since 2016. Now, I know that there's an awful lot of skepticism out there about how much innovation is brought in by the brands when you look at one generation of a driver versus the next generation of a driver. A lot of people don't feel like there's enough of a change there, and whilst certainly the changes are relatively small, they're incremental, they do add up over a period of time. And let's face it, if you didn't have to pay for your equipment, why would you turn down that extra bit of performance? Now, the other thing to point out is that whilst Nike came out of equipment, came out of golf clubs, they didn't come out of apparel. In fact, they really sort of doubled down their efforts on apparel, and you can see how whilst they sort of drew back on the golf clubs and stopped making golf clubs, they really focused on shoes in particular, and the number of shoes in play, or the number of shoes being worn in 2016 at the French Open was 12 versus 29 in 2018. Now back to the golf clubs, and there were just 2 players at the French Open using Nike golf clubs. They were Tommy Fleetwood and Ashley Chesters. Tommy Fleetwood was using 2 fairway woods by Nike. He was using a 13-degree Nike Vapor Fly and a 19-degree Nike Vapor Fly. That was the blue one. That was the last iteration of Nike metal woods. He also had Nike irons in the bag. He was using the VR Pro Blade irons with Project X 6.5 shafts in. Ashley Chesters, he was also using a 19-degree sort of 5-wood Vapor Fly with a graphite design 7S shaft in it, and he was using Nike VR forged irons. He had those in the 8, 9 and pitching wedge. Now, whilst there were just 2 players using it at the French Open, we did know that there were a few others with Nike clubs in the bag. So we've taken the data that sports marketing surveys have given us from the KLM Open, and that reveals a few more. So Pep Angles is using Nike Vapor Pro irons, 3 to 9, with Project X shafts in them. He is also, interestingly, using Nike Engage wedges. He has them 46, 50, 56 and 60. And that's interesting because obviously over time, the effectiveness of the grooves begins to wear down the more you hit them. And without those golf clubs, those model of heads being available anymore, I would be surprised if he didn't swap those out fairly soon, but we shall see. They might be real old trusties as far as he's concerned. Simon Dyson also using Nike equipment. He's using a Nike VRS forged 3-iron, and then he's using the Nike VR Pro combo irons 4 to pitching wedge. So they go from the sort of forged into the more bladed models, offering a little bit more forgiveness at the top end, into sort of straight blades as you get down through the irons. The final player with Nike club in his bag at the KLM Open was Oscar Serna. Now, I'm not going to tell you what model that was because it's on our list of the oldest golf clubs being used on tour. Have a look at that video because it is interesting. He's using a Nike 2-iron. So there you have it. That is the list of Nike equipment currently being played out on the European Tour. And as you can see, there's not an awful lot out there, but it does go to show that there is really genuine innovation within the golf market. And if you're getting your equipment for free, why wouldn't you take advantage of all of that innovation, all of those R&D dollars that are being spent by the major manufacturers? Guys, thank you very much for watching. Please do leave comments below. If you've got any questions about anything we've talked about in this video, please do ask them. We will get back to as many of you as we possibly can. But from West Hill, for now, it's goodbye.